Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our special Say It Sis Black History Month celebration. I am one of your co-founders, Rebecca Faith.
And I am Santana Nicole.
Yes. We are so excited for what's going to happen today. But before we get into our guest, our special guest for today, Tana, can you tell everybody about our mission and our vision of the platform?
So yes, absolutely. So the mission and vision of this platform is to empower, to embolden, and to encourage, right, women, right, all women, right, and specifically women of color to be everything that is great and beautiful and awesome as they are, right? And on top of that, with that, we also tell women to be beautiful, be loved, be heard, because we know that you have voice. We know that each of you are beautiful in your own right, in your own way, and we definitely want you to know and experience love from this platform. However, tonight we have a special guest. He's not a lady, of course, right? And so just because a platform is specific to supporting something does not mean that everybody cannot be in support of the representation that we bring back.
Awesome. Well said, Tana. I am so excited for tonight. But before we move any further, I want to invite everybody that's watching to love, like, share, follow us, and subscribe. The information is below. Share this on your Facebook pages so that your friends can see, because we're getting ready to get some great information. But let's recap, because it's the last day of Black History Month. This has been such a full month for the Say It Sis platform. We started off the month talking about sex because, hey, it was Valentine's, so we had to talk about sex. We had that conversation with Mr. Shira from Belfont Health. And then just this past Saturday, we had our first book club author with us, Miss Candice Cabrini. And she called in from London, and it was an awesome experience. What did you think about this, Montana?
Listen, this month has been dope. I mean, if you viewers out there, I see you in the viewers, right? And I see we already got a couple comments coming up. So this month was nice, awesome. Go back and I say it's this page. Look at the videos. We talked about sex, some great information for the ladies and the guys. Yeah, you can go back and look at it. Great information. And then having Miss Kandasi call in from London and her beautiful book, right? It just was, this month was super inspiring. Dope blackness. I just love it.
It was everything. So tonight we are going to be talking about and honoring and celebrating the legacy of Miss Henrietta Lacks. Have anybody here heard about Miss Henrietta Lacks? Let us know in the comment section.
Okay, let's go to a couple comments. So we got Teresa, hey sis, saying hey girl. We got Bridget saying hey sis, hey Bridget. Hey Terrell. We got Terrell logging in. And then we got a Facebook user saying they're in the building. That lets me know that we have women from our Sis Inc group that is in the building. Remember, you got to grant StreamYard permission to show your name if you wanted to come across. I know it'll be multiple people commenting, so make sure you put your name on it if you're not going to accept it, so we can give you some shout out and some love too. But like Becky says, Henrietta Lacks.
She is everything. She is so important to modern day medicine. But I'm not going to tell you about it because our special guest is going to tell you about it. But for the people who know, we love a good trivia because we like to give away good gifts. And what's the gift for the night, Tana?
So we just mentioned, right, that we had a special guest author on the book. And look, somebody's already saying, yes, I really enjoyed the book. Right. So I have the book right here. So I finished it. It's a great read, not only for adults, right? Males, women, children, right? And my daughter, who is 9, finished the book this past weekend. And also my 5-year-old is reading the book as well. And so this book is educating us on Black history, rich Black heritage when it comes to, our hair, our fashion, and our growth. And because of that, trivia, we are going to be giving out 2 of these books tonight on trivia. So y'all better get y'all trivia fingers ready. Y'all know how y'all get y'all
ready.
Get the trivia fingers ready.
Yes, we definitely need those trivia fingers ready. So I am going to give out the first trivia question. Are y'all ready? Let's get ready in the comments. Let's get the typing. All right. So the question is, how old was Miss Henrietta Lacks at the time of her death? Let's go. Dion said we ready. Let's go. Tana, anybody got the answer right
No,
yet?
not yet. I'm waiting. What is it, y'all? Maria says she's super excited. What's up, Maria? How old was Miss Henrietta Lacks, y'all?
Come on, y'all.
Come on. I think they typing back.
They gotta be typing, or they listen, or they trying to find the answer on Google. Somebody's close.
Not quite. No, Dion, definitely way off. Okay. All right. Not quite. Facebook user, remember to put your name so I'll know who you are, right? As I pull you up, keep it coming. How old was Miss Henrietta Lacks?
At the time of her death. This is super important.
Oh no, someone already put 34. Come on, y'all. Y'all got it.
Come on, y'all. A little. Oh no, Bridget.
Lower.
She was younger than 34. Younger than 32.
Not gonna get educated tonight.
Not
that low. Not that low. Come on, we're gonna spend all night on trivia, y'all.
I know.
Okay.
We're gonna get them
the year. Okay. Whoever this all right, whoever is the Facebook user, I don't know who you are, but yes, the answer is 39.
31. 31.
Go ahead, Mal. Guessing what? That's my bro. What's up, bro? All right. And then Teresa got 31. So good job on the guessing, y'all. Oh, Regina, congratulations. You have won a copy of Miss Candice's Kandasi. Let me make sure I say it right? Because it's easy for us to say like Candace, but it's really Kandasi, all right? It's an African pronunciation. So we definitely want to respect her in that manner to get her name right, because we want people to say our name right? So great job on the trivia. Awesome. Back. What do we have next?
So next, we're gonna take a quick commercial. We're gonna tell all our viewers to keep leaving those comments, drop hearts. We're gonna take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with to introduce our guest speaker.
Yay! All right. All right, y'all. We are back. And thank you, viewers. If you haven't hit that heart button, if you hadn't hit that share button, if you hadn't hit that like button, you is wrong. We are sharing rich Black history here. And welcome viewers from Facebook. Also welcome viewers from my YouTube page. Just go ahead and make sure you drop those comments in there. We're going to be pulling your comments up. If you have questions, pull them up too. Not sure I'm going to be able to answer much questions, but I can tell you our special guest is a book of wealth of knowledge. I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. So everybody else knows him as this young scholar, right? I mean, he is so awesomely dope, right? He is a Howard University student. He is a Howard BA/JD program honor student, right? He's also been affiliated with Clever Community Action, the Kwame Ture Society, the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center, and he's also an Africana protocol student. Now that's what everybody else knows him as, right? But I'm going to spoil it a little bit, but he is my baby. He is my son, who I am super, super, absolutely proud of. And those who have heard him speak know that he's all about what the movement for the people and betterment of Black and people of color. So without further ado, let's welcome the hearts. Let's welcome Jy'Mir to the platform. Everybody give the hearts. Hey,
everybody
baby,
else
how
doing?
you doing?
I'm good. How y'all doing?
Good. We so
Um,
happy to have you. Everybody been looking forward to you being here.
I'm just happy to see everybody and be back in this space. It's been a minute.
I know that's right.
Absolutely. We are always excited to have you here, Mir. Like you are such a plethora of knowledge and you're continuously teaching and to be in a program that continues and furthers your education in African and, Pan-Africanism studies, those types of things. I am super, super proud that you're carrying on and our heritage is so super important to you. So when we talk about Africana protocol student, all right, that's one of your titles. What does that mean?
Um, so to further understand that, I guess we have to sort of talk about what it means to be a BAJD student. And
Okay.
I'm a part of Howard's inaugural 3-in-3 program. So I do 3 years at the undergraduate level and 3 years at the law school. And over time, when I was in the undergrad, so like last year, I met Baba Kenneth Nunn, who's a professor, a law professor in Florida, and he to, he told me that he wanted to study how pre-colonial African societies mediated conflict and reached resolutions, and that stuck out to me because that's more interesting and engaging than like the Western legal tradition to me. And then I read his Law as a Eurocentric Enterprise, and then I met Sister Angie Porter, who's a law professor at Georgetown, and she actually teaches Africana legal study at Georgetown on Tuesdays, which I got class on, so I can't go to, unfortunately. But and she introduced the word protocol to me because I was more so thinking of approaching it through an illegal Afrocentric tradition, sort of basing it off of Cedric Robinson a bit. And when she said protocol, it blew everything up because it was like, this is so much easier to work with. And I just read her forthcoming article, and it's basically protocol is how African people, Africans use broadly, so the commonalities throughout the continent, but how a certain ethnic group, or African more generally, mediated their society through rules and cultural regulations. In the same way that European and Western people have a legal tradition, other peoples outside of Europe have their own societal rules and ethics and mores that they use to navigate in social society that can't be considered law because it isn't. It's something totally different and culturally
Mm.
specific. Hence, what Africana Protocol study is. It's new. It's only like 3 people doing that, including me. So it's a developing field, and I'm just happy to be there and sort of sit and fellowship with everyone else as we delve into the further study. But I think that's what I want to do going forward. My career is definitely Africana Protocol. And in the sense of keeping it relevant and contemporary, which is what helps me with the center. So Kwame Ture Society taught me the Africana Protocol, and then the Thurgood Marshall Center, they taught me the movement lawyering, and that's what I see myself doing going forward is melding those two together.
Wow. Wow. Y'all give this young man some hearts and some love, right?
Thank you.
Because he is saying that he is going to continue richly in our culture, richly in understanding what it is that we do. Think I'm trying to be professional. I say, baby, you so dope, but I'm a real proud mom. I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud of you, honey. I am so proud of you, and all your achievements and all your accomplishments. So, without further ado, Becky, if you don't have anything, we're gonna let the viewers get to
Okay.
see the presentation.
Yes, I'm ready for the presentation myself. So we're gonna head off the screen, and Jy'Mir, the floor is yours.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank y'all for opening up for us. Uh, so how y'all doing? I'm Jy'Mir Starks, as they introduced me already, and we're about to delve into this a little bit. Hopefully, y'all can still see me. Here it is. If I can, can you put this on the screen? I guess we should have. There we go. Get that started. Okay, so I'm gonna guess that y'all can see me. So this is the Eternal Henrietta Lacks. It's a Say It's His production, and as we move forward with it, before we speak to Henrietta Lacks, we have to understand that there's a certain context that she had found herself within, and there's the side of the Western medical advancements, and then there's the side of those detriments. But we're gonna focus on the contributions of Africana people in Western medicine, and I want to break this down a bit because when we say Africana people, that's just referring to African descended people wherever they may be. And that A is essential because it includes the African diaspora. So a lot of times when someone says African, they may typically think of a continent. More specifically, they may think of sub-Saharan Africa, which is typically referred to as Black Africa. But this opens all that up. It says African people are everywhere. And then contributions to Western medicine is key, especially that Western aspect of it, because the medical field is from a certain tradition that arises. It starts in Europe. So you get the doctrine of do no evil, and that starts in Rome and classical Greece. But African people had been performing rituals and ensuring that there was a communal healing before that. And so that's where we come from this tradition here, where we have to situate Henrietta Lacks as a member of the people in that tradition, but also as someone who found herself in a Western situation. And before we get to her, I just wanted to shout out a handful of Black women in the medical field who made great strides and contributed, and also Black men, because this is Say It Sis, and we always want to uplift our community at large. So we have Dr. Rebecca Crumpler, and she was the first woman in the United States to earn an MD, and she became a doctor in 1864. And just a little trivia, that was 3 years before Howard University had been founded. And then she published a book of medical advice for women and children in 1883. And we see that even back then, medicine included not just a single individual, but it included that family unit. So you have the mother and her children both being able to receive care and medical knowledge there. Then there's Miss Hughes Gaston, also a doctor. She was the first woman to lead a public health service bureau, and her research in sickle cell anemia would lead to nationwide screenings for newborn babies. And then the subsequent knowledge and developments in sickle cell research came from that. So that was her leading. And then there's Miss Edith Irby Jones, doctor, and she was the first woman to be elected president of the National Medical Association in 1985, with a little bit more recent history. But as I did mention, as a preface a little bit, there's this man here, and this is where we sort of set the backdrop for African people and our contributions to Western medicine. I learned about him in my Intro to Afro American Studies course with Dr. Carr. It was my first class at Howard, and it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, bright and early, but hung on every word. And this is Onesimus, and this is his enslaved name. So his African name is currently unknown, and he'd been enslaved in Massachusetts in the early 1700s. And he'd been enslaved and sold to a man by the name of Cotton Mather in Massachusetts. And Mather was a leading figure in the Salem witch trials, so a man of influence and such. But Onesimus introduced the process of inoculation to Western medicine. And for those who don't know, inoculation is sort of a predecessor to how do we get vaccines now. And the process of it is sort of like, this is a direct quote. He told people that he'd gone an operation to avoid smallpox, because smallpox at the time had been ravaging the indigenous First Nation peoples and the European colonists and African peoples who'd been transported forcefully for decades, centuries, because there hadn't been any cure for it. So this is an epidemic. This is a pandemic, actually, that they find themselves in. And Onesimus says that he had received an operation which had given him a form of immunity to persevere from smallpox. And any who had the courage to use the operation would be free of the contagion. And the choice of words with the sense of considering it the courage to take on that endeavor is something that I think a lot of people should really understand, is that when Africans encountered healing, there was always that spiritual, that ethereal, that otherworldly, that metaphysical aspect to it. And so a lot of times, you might go and get a vaccination or a basic shot and think nothing of it. But here, there was a sense of a courage and over emotional tone to it, that this is an endeavor that you must actively seek out and go through with and face it head on, in a sense. And I think that spirit definitely lives on continuously through African peoples at large. But the operation itself is pretty gross if you think about it, because it's the 1700s. There's not a lot of hygiene going on in Massachusetts at this time, but it's basically there's an open wound on your arm, and the pus from someone who's already infected is sort of rubbed into the open wound, and sort of remnants of like what a vaccination is, where they take a weakened form of the pathogen and then they, stick it in you, and then your natural body, fights it off and builds up the immunity. So if they do come into like the big monster or something like that, then they won't get cut off guard. And I think that right there is essential to understand, but also take into account that Onesimus had this operation, but when could he have had the operation? Because is it saying that this is something that he done in Massachusetts, or is this something that he learned through his forced travels across the Atlantic, seeing that the enslaved ships, they didn't just stop and go from point A to B. They went from the coast all the way through the Caribbean or even South America, then the Caribbean, then up along the Atlantic. So there was a point in time that Onesimus could have learned this tradition. And it is a tradition because it's not like he just thought of it. This is an operation. So it was already something that had been done, but could have learned this tradition through his forced travel, or had it been something that had been taught before he'd even been captured and enslaved, and then shows to a richer tradition of inoculation and medical protection that had been performed on the continent. And I think that just sort of leaves uh, a whole deep well of knowledge that one could go and explore and try to interrogate. But another thing that's interesting is that this has been a practice that had been occurring in Turkey and China at the time of the 1700s. So it seems that like everyone has this concept of beginning inoculation and building an immune defense. But what were the logics and codes that went behind that, and how did they approach it? I think is something that we should further interrogate to figure out what exactly was going on and how these people came to this conclusion or this tradition or these practices, and also how this sort of missed Europeans, European descended people, because at the time when Onesimus had suggested this, he told Cotton Mather this, and Mather was like, "Okay, I'm with it." And then Mather was then rejected by his community in Massachusetts, and many just seen him as a heretic and claiming that he was trying to endanger the community, and that God wouldn't allow any of his children to come in contact willingly with such a deadly and dangerous disease. And I think just the whole incident surrounding Onesimus' contribution to early medicine is something that we should definitely look at. And unfortunately, there isn't much known after this incident regarding Onesimus. There's just some speculation that he'd eventually purchase his freedom, and but not much after that. Just that one mentioning there, and then in 1980, very recent, the World Health Organization had declared that smallpox had officially been eradicated, and we can contribute onesimus in helping that. And now we're going to take a sort of a heavier turn into the presentation, because we laid the context of African people's contributions to Western medicine. But what is Western medicine taken from Africana people? And when we say take, it's not like a little like taking or a snatching, but it's more of a deliberate, ruthless, and a brutal violation. And that's where we get with medical apartheid. And this is pretty heavy. There's a lot of unease regarding the medical field when it comes to the Black community and the African descended community on a large scale. And medical apartheid is a good term to sort of understand that approach. And before we get into that, we have to understand what I hope we all understand what medicine is, but medical in this refers to the Western tradition of medicinal practice. And apartheid, I'm going to expand that a little bit, because a lot of times people like associate apartheid with South Africa and the Nationalist Party that lasted in the for a good chunk of the 20th century, and then it ends with the revolutionary actions of Fidel Castro sending forces to Angola, which then puts military pressure, which leads to the release of Nelson Mandela, because we have to understand the people of Azania were also fighting within South Africa. Well, African people have always been fighting everywhere, and apartheid is a system of segregation and discrimination that led to a minority rule. There were these descendants of colonists referred to as Boers, Boers, and the descendants of like Dutch and English colonists who stayed, and they after colonialism, well, after outright colonialism, we get into the neo-colonialism period. Uh, they sort of consolidate much of their power and institute this system of apartheid, which is more resemblance of Jim Crow America, if that makes sense. And that's basically what I was trying to say is that apartheid isn't just relegated to South Africa, but it's more so a position or a system or policy, state action that designates a certain group of people occupy this role, and that role is subjugation and oppression. And similarities are between Jim Crow America, and you could even say even today with the various issues stemming from racial discrimination and segregation that we find now. But that's just with the definitional term. Then, as we sort of delve deeper into it, uh, we get applying the logics of apartheid to the medical field, and that's what Mama Harriet Washington does with this book. Hope you guys can see me here. I'll put it right there from the face a little bit. Medical Apartheid, and it's a pretty thick book. It's a pretty thick book, but it is the comprehensive guide to understanding American medical atrocities on Afro descended peoples in various quantities and amounts. And it doesn't focus on a specific time frame, but it encompasses the centuries of oppression, abuse, and mutilation that African people have sort of experienced. It's a heavy read, definitely. I wouldn't say this is for the faint of heart. It's literally the dark history, and it doesn't shy away from anything. And I think that that's one of the benefits of the book is you just understand that a lot of it is pretty inhumane, for lack of a better word. And even this background sort of leads into one of the more popularly understood programs of medical apartheid with the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, where men were told that basically that they were going to be tested for bad blood, and some were found, not some, it's like a couple hundred, I think 200 or 300 men were found to have contracted syphilis. And this isn't to say that they contracted syphilis through sexual acts, but this is still Jim Crow, the Jim Crow American South, and the conditions that many of these men were in were sharecroppers. So they could have simply contracted it from the subpar and inhumane conditions that they've been forced to grow up in their families. But they were found to have syphilis, and they continued to live with syphilis, even though the medical examiners understood that they did have this virus, this disease, and help was sort of withheld from them. Many of the men participated solely because, this was the only time that they were going to receive medical care in their lives, because the system is still vehemently racist, but also that meals were provided. And so it's just that there were other incentives outside of medical care, in the sense that if some of them were to die, that some of their funeral expenses would have been paid. The issue is that some of the men didn't know that they had syphilis, and they were just told that they had bad blood, which could have meant anything back then. And as the experiment went on, and it went on for several decades, a potential cure for syphilis had been developed, and that was penicillin. And that cure had been withheld from them, and withheld from them and their families. Because remember, these are still people who over decades have started being a part of the program and then went on and had families and intimate relationships. So their whole community, it's not just these hundreds of men, but also their partners and their descendants who also become associated and may actually have syphilis. And the cure is sort of being withheld from them. And many of them did transition and pass away from this. And the purpose was, which is, we get the more sinister part, the reason why they were watched and taken care of and kept in the experiment is because the medical examiners wanted to know what the debilitating effects of long-term syphilis had been on the body, on a human being. And they thought that if they just allowed people to waste away from syphilis, that that'd be great as anything. I think that sort of gleans into the inhumanity of what goes on here. And outside of the Tuskegee experiment, there are the eugenics programs of Margaret Sanger. And for those who don't know what eugenics is, it's basically an ideology that claims that certain people don't deserve life. Put pretty briefly, in the sense of that they're going to be undesirable or less worthy traits in human beings, and that those traits shouldn't be populated or continuing in a society. And eugenics has been used to justify the Holocaust, but also medical experimentation on African American peoples and African descended peoples, so American African peoples. And the eugenics programs extend everywhere. I mean, the logics of eugenics sort of lead into the Tuskegee experiment, because you could argue that this wouldn't have happened to Euro descended Americans. But also, there are the forced hysterectomies that happened throughout the early, not even early, like Jim Crow period at large, where uh, American African women would receive medical examinations, and doctors would perform hysterectomies on them, or somehow inhibit their ability to reproduce and create children. And that happened to a prominent civil rights activist and leader, Mama Fannie Lou Hamer. She received a forced hysterectomy that she hadn't even known about, for something that she thought was just a simple bruise or a broken bone or something. And then she went into the doctor's office and they took her uterus out. And she still had children afterwards. And I think this is one of the beauties of African people persevering in spite of white supremacy, is that even though they took away her ability to have children through a uterus, she still had several children, adopted children, but still her own, that she had and she cared for up until her passing. And then there's also uh, programs that took place outside of the eugenics and outside of, Tuskegee. And these were programs that took place in areas that tend to get overlooked. And that's in facilities of incarceration. So there are prisons where the same logics of medical apartheid are being placed, but this time on people who society has typically tend to forget about and written off as criminal or as defective. And so we don't really look into uh, things that go on behind the walls, or we're told not to. And when we do, we find horrors that are just disgusting. I know that radiation treatments have been used for the radiation treatments are crazy, because this is still during the Cold War and the nuclear age. And there's a lot of experimentation. And I want to stop here because sometimes I do talk and I catch a flow and I just roll with it. But when I say experimentation, this isn't like, when you're in school and you do, a volcano and you shake up a bottle of Coca Cola with mementos, or you make yeast in a bottle. I'm just thinking of things we did. This is more so human experimentation that resides in the realm of playing God with other people. And I think when I say experiment, we have to understand that these had generational consequences that were exceedingly violent and brutal, that take place over centuries, that typically undermined African peoples, or attempted to undermine African people's humanity and ability to live full lives, which is heavy in itself. But when it comes to experimentation behind prison walls, incarcerated peoples of African descent had been given some of the more cruel, painful, and risky experimentations. And we can only think about how that happens when we think about the sanitary nature of prisons as is, especially during the Jim Crow South. But also, into the contemporary, if you wove in the fact that during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in New York, that incarcerated peoples had been forced to make hand sanitizer and other cleaning products for the state of New York, and they weren't compensated for it whatsoever. But not only that, but many of them were unvaccinated at the time, and they still don't receive vaccinations, to my knowledge. And to think how the state had basically used these people's labor to sort of protect everyone who was redeemed, who was considered acceptable in society, while the prison population had been dwindling exceedingly fast due to COVID-19 ravaging behind the walls. And I think that we understand medical apartheid. We can't miss any place where African people are because, well, African people are everywhere. And since we're everywhere, the apartheid regime seeks to destroy us and such. And Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington does a phenomenal job sort of going over everything that I just talked about at 100-fold. I definitely suggest it, but there might be a couple times where you have to put the book down because it is a heavy read. And so, after speaking to medical apartheid a little bit and speaking to the contributions of Africana people, then we sort of arrive at and with the story of Henrietta Lacks, the immortal. And a lot of times when people talk about Henrietta Lacks, they focus on her contributions in John Hopkins and her cells, and they tend to not understand who she was as a human being, as a person. And I want to start before I say anything scientific about her, before I say anything that sort of gets to the nitty gritty of her DNA genome. I just want to understand and let everyone understand that Henrietta Lacks was a daughter, she was a mother, she was a wife, and she was a caring community member who opened her doors up to everyone. She was born in 1920 on August 1st. So shout out Leos in Roanoke, Virginia. And she'd been married to David Lacks up until the time of her passing. And she had 6 siblings, and her parents had been Eliza Lacks Pleasant and John Randall Pleasant. And she had 5 children. She was a loving mother. She loved to cook spaghetti, and she wore stylish red nail polish. And she loved to dance, typically with her children. And stories say that her home had been a refuge for all of her family, as well as any who was in need. And when we understand that, we can understand that, okay, so this is still a human being we're talking about, and not some figure in history, because figures don't have life, people do. And then we move forward. She'd been diagnosed with cervical cancer in 1951 when she went into John Hopkins Hospital, excuse me, with a complaint of vaginal bleeding. And it turned out that it'd been a malignant tumor on her cervix, which a slight caveat here is that this is in the 1950s. So this is still Jim Crow America. This is still during the heat of medical apartheid, and also during the time of pseudoscience and the belief that Black people are more susceptible to various sexual diseases or reproductive diseases, as well as the concepts that Black people don't feel pain as much. So we can understand that her care had maybe had been subpar when she received it, given the racial connotations of it. But still, John Hopkins was one of the few facilities that was actively treating African descended people, given that like she was from Roanoke, Virginia, and she had to go all the way up to Baltimore for this. And during her biopsy, she was still living. Her cancer cells had been retrieved and then sent to Dr. George Gay, Gey, and the issue with that is that no one asked Miss Lacks whether she wanted her cells to be sent to someone who had nothing to do with her procedures or anything whatsoever. Not in the same departments. Dr. Gay was just someone who worked in the institution, but was not associated with the treatments performed on Miss Henrietta Lacks whatsoever. He was a complete outside actor, and the cells had been sent to her, to him, and he discovered that Miss Lacks cells doubled every 20 to 24 hours, unlike other cells which tended to die after exhibiting multiple. Basically, cells divide until they can't anymore, and that's when they die off. But hers divided into perpetuity, continuously divided. And if you look at the John Hopkins website, they'll state that Dr. Gay, he basically took the cell cultures of everyone he came in contact with, and it was just something that he did. And it's not immoral or anything. That it was just something that this guy was just doing, which sort of leads into the credibility of what John Hopkins was doing. in the mid 20th century and before, if this was just common practice to take the cell cultures and other medical information of anyone that another doctor would have came in contact with just because it was a nice hobby for you. But I digress. And another thing, and now we get into the cells of Miss Henrietta Lacks, and they're known as the HeLa cells, HeLa, for her first two letters in her first name and the first two letters of her last name. And I'm not a science, technology, engineering, math person, so bear with me on some of these pronunciations. But the cells had an enzyme in them called telomerase that continually rebuilds telomers, which are a repetitive strand of DNA on the ends of chromosomes. And typical human cells have 46 chromosomes, while HeLa cells have between 70 to 90. So that's roughly double the amount of chromosomes. And then you have these enzymes that continue the cell division process. And since the cells are double in the chromosomes and they have an extra enzyme that allows them to continue this, HeLa cells, some scientists believe that they could be considered their own species in a sense because of the asexual cellular division and the evolution through continuous mutations that they exhibit. But the cells are very dependent on human interaction. So food has to be provided for them and a stable environment, or else they will suffer outside forces and then die off. So a stable, controlled human environment prolongs the cells. And unfortunately, the same year that Ms. Henrietta Lacks went in to treat her cervical cancer that she just spoke of with the symptom of vaginal bleeding, uh, she passed away. She'd been taking radium treatments, so radiation therapy in a sense, for the cervical cancer. And unfortunately, she transitioned on October 4th, 1951, at 31 years old, and from terminal uremia brought on by the cervical cancer. And terminal uremia is the result of toxins building in the blood uh, and a sign of severe kidney dysfunction, which could be attributed to the cervical cancer, but it may also be attributed to the actual treatment that she'd been receiving. So, a lot of complications on that, and we wish her eternal life. And then we get into the cells themselves as we pay proper respects to Henrietta Lacks, Mr. Henrietta Lacks. But there's the immortal part, the calling card of history that makes her such a fixture, are these HeLa cells. And they've been used to study the human genome, radiation and poisons on cancer cells, viruses, toxins, and drugs on cancer cells. And they've been used in vaccine development. These cells are just amazing, for lack of a better word. It's crazy if you think about it, because it's like you got these cells that continue to replicate, and then you can sort of do whatever you want with them because there's always a constant supply. And then this allows for all of these activities and medical developments to be made without having to bring a person into harm. So you don't have to perform these treatments and experiments on an actual person because you have these cells which don't exhibit any form of sentience in a way. Uh, and John Hopkins states that they do not own the rights to the HeLa cells, and they freely distributed the information regarding the cells to the medical community, which sounds very valiant and brilliant in that, this is free information for all, but it sort of leads into a pretty nasty part here where they didn't share any information with a price tag, but they never had the right to share any of that information. As we said earlier, Miss Henrietta Lacks was never told that her cells had this ability. She never consented to allowing her cells to be shared in that way or any of her information. And when John Hopkins distributed this information, it could have been her actual personal information. So why she was sharing, why she even went to the hospital. I know it is very disturbing to think that John Hopkins was giving out someone's medical information free of charge because they thought that the benefit of the medical community was better than family's a family's security in itself. And not only that, but the medical information was given. They even released her DNA genome, which was then taken down after the family sued. And to think that your whole genetic makeup could just be placed out in front of the scientific community and allowed to be picked apart. And that sort of coincides with the medical apartheid in that there isn't rest even after death. Uh, even, in the sense of there'd always been illegal and inhumane dissections, illegal autopsies, violations of grave robbing and grave digging. And then you see that Miss Henrietta Lacks' cells, as immortal and amazing as they are, they'd been treated as, scientific instruments to be played with instead of the continuation of a person's being. And I think that that's probably one of the more disgusting parts. And her family hadn't even been notified of any of these advancements. So while the medical community is going and making strides in vaccine development and basically figuring out how better cancer research and treatments can be done, the family, and this is still in the 1950s, the family, the community, uh, African descended people at large, they're most likely unable to receive any of the benefits of this. I mean, even today, with the state of our healthcare system, there are many people who couldn't afford any of the benefits of the research that came from these HeLa cells from that came from Miss Henrietta Lacks. And I think that shows just how uh, malicious the system can be, to where only a certain group can enjoy the benefits of humanity. In a sense, if you're going to take someone's personal information and basically take their being and then redistribute it amongst your enclave, your specific community, and then continue to bar that person's cultural and ethnic and heretical group from even being able to get some of the benefits, I think that shows just how nasty this can all get. And even then, that's from a standpoint of sharing medical information. Because while all of this research is being done, grants are still being given. Not only that, but these private companies are still giving out biotechnology, and these other medical companies that are giving out these vaccines that are being developed using her cells. And not any of them had given funds to the family of Henrietta Lacks or anyone else who'd been associated, or anyone who'd suffered from this situation. So all the profits were taken and pocketed, and then the system had just continued. And it wasn't until very recently that anyone even knew that something had been amiss or that things had gone wrong. It's The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks and the Eternal Henrietta Lacks, which is a movie that's we've seen on HBO and other places, starring Oprah Winfrey, sort of details Miss Henrietta Lacks and her life, and then her contributions, whether non-consensually given at that, to the medical industry, the medical empire that we see here. And the family did reach an agreement with the U.S. National Institutes of Health to approve the release of another HeLa cell genome, and that has been official and an ethical release that came about. So, if you are interested in sort of getting into the DNA genome sequencing of the HeLa cell line, then that's one way that you can go through and witness and sort of engage that without sort of undercutting Miss Henrietta Lacks and her legacy as well as her family, because that's been agreed to. And outside of that, there has been a campaign to sort of introduce more ethics into the system of medical apartheid, which is the current policy campaign to have a revision of the common rule. And the common rule is rules, so there's multiple, a set of rules that protect human participation in research funded by the US government. And that would require, and this is the amendment here. So they're the rules that sort of protect people from human experimentation through governmental funds. And the amendment would say that there's a requirement to obtain the consent to be gained from anyone where biological specimens are taken and their samples are going to be used in research. And it's amazing how it's about 70 years later, and it's still being something that's discussed, even though all these developments have been made. And it's not just Miss Henrietta Lacks, because if you place her story into the context of what we said earlier with Africana people and their contributions, as well as the medical apartheid system, how many stories that relate to Miss Henrietta Lacks have there been that we just don't know of, because this is still something that we're just finding out, and things that are going to come about in the future, hopefully the very near future, and there's some form of reparation and retribution for the families of these people. But just to sort of understand that there isn't any isolated events, that there's always a tradition and a genealogy that sort of takes place when we discuss events. And further, going to leave on a good note, a very high one actually. For further information, there's the Henrietta Lacks Foundation, which was established in 2010 and has worked with the descendants of Miss Henrietta Lacks, but also descendants of other victims of medical apartheid to have had their biological specimens and other medical information stolen or taken without their consent, and then used in medical research and advancement without their knowledge. So the Henrietta Lacks Foundation should definitely go check that out. They definitely assist the families in sort of helping in some reparative work in a sense of holistic justice. But that right there is all I have. Just any questions or thoughts that someone may have. But thank you guys for sitting and fellowshipping with me. I hope I didn't talk too fast or too long at that. I tend to do it once I catch a flow. But any questions or thoughts or anything like that? Shout out to my mom and my auntie for letting me come on and kick it with y'all for a minute and end in Black History Month, but also the second month of the year on a very high note. It's a hard lineup to come through after everyone keeps coming in. Could say it's this is always just advancing. The bar keeps going up and up. I'm always happy to be a part of that. So definite shout out to everyone who sort of sat with me today as we sort of delved into the history and implications of the immortal Miss Henrietta Lacks. Thank you. You muted. Y'all muted.
Hey, that was
wow.
That's
awesome,
crazy.
awesome presentation, Mir. I'm blown away. I am literally blown away.
Crazy.
The way that you brought this information and just the totality of it. Because yes, this platform, we was talking about Henrietta Lacks, but she is never, like we just talked about, it's always somebody else before. It's always somebody else, prior to it, but it's only these onesies and twosies that we actually learn about. So to understand, for you to explain the full scope of this medical apartheid with people of African descent, it's just amazing. And I'm literally like just in awe. You really just brought it. So thank you so much. That was so dope.
You know what?
Thank you.
I'm going to get to these comments, right? Because they're literally coming in, someone said, man, say I'm so proud of you, right? That's what's up. And we have Sierra said, well done, son. Well done. Absolutely. We have someone else saying you are absolutely amazing. I want to give you your accolades right now because you are. And then I'll say my 2 cents. Great job. Someone is saying, Adam said that, and then outstanding, someone else. Bridget is saying awesome, right? And then the comments keep going. And someone said, I've been working in the medical field for 22 years, and this is by far was the best education I've received. You are amazing, nephew. That's what's up. Awesome, right? And you know what? I told you he was associated with Clever Community Action. And what you saw tonight is exactly what he would do. If you go back on their page, love, like, subscribe to Clever Communities in Action, they pretty much do the same thing. They educate young scholars on type of things like this. And I mean, they go forth and you'll see him talking about multiple things. If you want to be educated, and when it comes to, Black and all things Black, this kid is definitely doing that. So this knowledge has my emotions all over the place, right? Absolutely. Someone giving you some hand claps, right? Said Aunt Carolyn is so proud of you. Keep up the good work. Yay. All right. And we got Adam said amazing, talented, blessed young man. Absolutely. You got a lot of love in the audience. This was Auntie Maria saying, all right. We got a couple more. We try to get the excellent information. You are dope. Nicely done. Immortal Cells. Wow. Never ever would have known it existed. Wow. Right. So we are definitely educating. Someone giving you checks. I give you checks too, man. Straight certified. Straight, absolutely certified. Right. So I know you my baby, and I'm so proud of you, right? I'm so proud of the information that you bought. I know that when Becca said, let's get Henrietta Lacks, I was like, who better else to come and bring you on, because you're gonna represent for the people. You're gonna bring what the people need. You understand it and you seek it, right? Y'all, this boy is a natural researcher, right? The books and stuff that you see in the background, they're not for show. You know how some people put them up for show? No, this boy reads, right? And he is researching not just the hearsay, but the truth of what our people need to know, the truth of what our people need to see, and exposing the things that we have not seen. And that was something we talked about on Saturday with our other special guest, Ms. Kandasi, the author, about our truths. Stop following hearsay. Read, educate yourselves on what it is that our people are doing. We have such a rich heritage, and we need to be exploring that. And son, you already know I love you to absolute death.
Thank you
so much for being on the platform tonight. I am all like, I want to cry, but I ain't gonna do you like that, right? But I just want to tell you that I'm so proud of you, and I knew that this would happen, and I knew the people would leave more educated by you being on the platform.
I'm glad.
Do you have anything, Mir?
Not really. I just want to wish everyone a great next month. I know Sis is going to take it up, and just happy to be able to fellowship with everyone today.
Absolutely. And Aunt Teresa saying the best and keep up the good work. All right. Absolutely. This is so absolutely dope. All right. Well, thank you so much, baby, for joining us on the show tonight. We're excited that you joined us, and we love you. Beck, you got any last minutes before we go?
Love you, Mir, and keep going forth and doing great things. It's you that is people in the children of your generation that's going to change this world. So we just here to watch and support you all the way through it. Love you.
Love you. All right. Hey, viewers, don't go away. We're about to throw out one trivia question. Jy'Mir already gave you the answer, but we're going to give out another trivia question for another book. We did see in the comments that Regina said she already had the book, so we're going to pass the next book along to Adam. Well, Adam, congratulations, because you were the next in line to win that book for guessing 31 for the first trivia question. But here, we're going to throw out another trivia question. And he already gave you the answer, so you should already know it. It's really easy, all right? What is the nickname for Henrietta Lacks cells? What is the nickname of the cells of Henrietta Lacks? What was that cells? Go ahead, type it in.
Let's go.
So let's go.
Do. That was
awesome. Not T-cells. No, not H-cells. All right. We got T-cells. All right. Who are you, Facebook user? All right. Maria. Okay. And then who? Okay. You were close, Malk. You were close. All right. Absolutely close. Maria, congratulations, sis. You have won the Lex book. So congratulations, y'all. Put in the comments, tell Adam and Maria congratulations. I know both of them personally, so I know how to get a book to them. It is the Gila Cells, y'all. The information that you've received tonight, make sure you pass that information on. Don't just be stuck not letting all this good stuff go, right? All right.
Gotta share the information.
You got to share the information, and you got to share this on your feed. So if you have not shared it on your feed yet, make sure you go back and do so, because it's super important that we're educated, and we're educated on the right stuff to know. All right. And Jy'Mir's just keep getting lots and lots of love in the comments. And congrats again to Adam and Maria. All right, Becky, before we go to a quick commercial break, before we close out, you got anything?
I am just blown away. That was an awesome presentation. And, you know, he just brought it full circle, talking about COVID in the past and the present and the future, and all of these new rules that they implementing that keeps things like this from happening again. But you know how with every negative, unfortunately, the way everybody went about it was so negative. But look at all the great things, and I'm glad that the family of Miss Henrietta Lacks now can have the right to her legacy and to tell her story. So I'm just touched, and I'm just like blown away. This was just an awesome presentation.
Yes, sis. And I just real quickly agree with you on how he was discussing with me prior to the presentation, how it's easy just to do a presentation of our kids about the surfaceness of it.
Mm-hmm.
But to go back that deep, right? To understand where it started, to take us all the way back to the land and bring us to it, man, I can't say nothing but dope. And and I'm telling you, most of all the kids that he's around, they're just as dope. They just do the same thing. They do the same exact thing. All right, y'all, stay tuned. We're gonna close out, but we gotta go to a quick commercial break.
Why do I need to be good all the time? I'm wrapped around his finger, but he is mine. Don't care what they say, too late anyway. Why do I need to be good all the time? No drama, yeah. No drama, yeah. No drama, yeah. No drama, yeah.
We're back, everybody. So this concludes our show. But like we said, before we go, we want everybody to stop what you're doing. Like, love, share, follow us on all of our platforms, Facebook, YouTube, our Facebook Say Sis group. Don't miss the information. February does not owe us anything. It came, it saw, and it conquered. This was a great month for the platform, and I'm excited about all the new things that's going to be coming up next month. So, Tina, it's on you, sis.
Right, so y'all make sure y'all check us out in the platform for next month. Make sure that you share. Guys, tell your girlfriends, come in, women of color, to join our group. We are excited. And as we close out any chat or any live, we tell the people to be beautiful, be loved, and be heard. And tonight we did just that. Henrietta Lacks will not go down in vain. She has been loved for what she's done, and she is beautiful for what she's done, even though it was a tough situation. But tonight her voice has been heard. So keep being beautiful out there, keep being dope, and we'll see you all next time in the comments. Love y'all. Good night.
Love y'all. Good